This will continue to spur growth like you haven't seen. Before I was elected, we were losing all of our plants that were being built in Mexico and Canada and other places.
In 2025, a seismic shift rattled global trade as President Trump unleashed a 25% tariff on all imported vehicles and auto parts, sending shockwaves through the U.S. automotive industry.
Today, most car parts imported into the U.S. will have a 25% tariff. The tax will likely impact all car makers, even Fords that are made in America have some foreign parts.
The American car market, one of the world's largest, has long relied on foreign manufacturers, especially German powerhouses such as BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and Volkswagen.
I think this kind of protectionism will only produce losers. We have in the United States 2,000 companies from the German automakers with around about 140,000 employees. We are producing 840,000 cars in the US. That's a great commitment.
These automakers play a critical role in the US economy, supplying not only high-end vehicles but also thousands of jobs. But now Germany has hit back, halting shipments to the U.S. entirely. Is this the start of a global trade standoff? And how deep will the damage go for car buyers, businesses, and beyond? By early 2025, Germany's leading automakers, Volkswagen and Mercedes-Benz, were grappling with a financial downturn, each posting a steep decline in quarterly profits of over 40%. The sharp drop was driven by slumping demand in China and growing pressure from a new wave of aggressive tariffs introduced by U.S. President Donald Trump. With BMW, Audi, and Porsche also caught in the storm, the very foundation of Germany's industrial power is being tested. What's unfolding isn't just a trade dispute, it's an escalating economic confrontation with global consequences, threatening consumer costs, market stability, and the future of international commerce. Within days of President Trump's April 2, 2025 announcement of a sweeping 25% tariff on all imported vehicles and auto parts, the global auto industry jolted. German automakers, who've long leaned on the U.S. for profit, prestige, and steady market share, were the first to hit the brakes. Shipments that once glided across the Atlantic like clockwork were immediately frozen. Ports in Hamburg and Bremerhaven, typically buzzing with outbound Audis and Volkswagens, suddenly turned into holding grounds. It was more than a business pivot, it was damage control in real time. Audi acted fast and decisively. The company stopped all U.S.-bound exports within hours of the tariff news. The reason? Economics. Sending thousands of high-end vehicles to America under the weight of a new 25% cost hike could devastate both margins and dealership pricing. Instead, Audi chose to hold vehicles at port and reassess. Executives began urgently reworking their U.S. pricing strategy and considering local production options, including further investment in North American facilities. For a brand that depends on design precision and premium branding, this sudden recalibration was risky, but necessary.
We're just hearing now in the past few minutes Volkswagen confirming it is holding back Audi cars that have already arrived in U.S. ports.
Volkswagen mirrored Audi's response, suspending exports to the U.S. and quickly turning attention to its production hub in Puebla, Mexico. The logic was clear. Why ship from Europe under heavy tariffs when the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, USMCA, could still be leveraged? According to Automotive News, VW is now exploring ways to increase its Mexican output, not just to serve the U.S. market, but to potentially insulate the brand from any future trade shocks. Meanwhile, the Financial Times reported that BMW is facing even greater challenges. With major sales coming from imported models, especially luxury sedans, the tariff presented an existential threat to their U.S. strategy. BMW is now considering expanding its Spartanburg plant in South Carolina, a move that could help dodge tariffs while maintaining a strong domestic presence. The facility, which already employs over 11,000 people, might become a new front line in Germany's response to U.S. protectionism. While some automakers paused, others scrambled. Porsche, known for its agile strategy and low-volume, high-margin models, executed a swift and smart move called front-loading. By fast-tracking shipments to the U.S. before the tariff deadline, they were able to stock dealerships in advance and buy time to figure out long-term logistics. but that buffer is temporary. Every car shipped after April 2nd comes at a cost. Mercedes-Benz, on the other hand, hit a bottleneck. Its Alabama plant, critical for assembling SUVs and sedans, was suddenly paralyzed due to tariff-inflated import part prices and delays. Without key components, final assembly lines halted. Now the company is forced to explore local sourcing options or redesign its supply chain altogether. What was once a smooth system built on efficiency has turned into a high-stakes game of adjustment and endurance. For the average American luxury car buyer, these behind-the-scenes decisions are starting to show. Dealerships in states like California, Florida, and New York are already reporting tighter inventories. Shoppers looking for their next BMW X5 or Audi Q7 are either being told to wait or pay more. Price increases are expected across the board, especially for new imports. As a result, some buyers are pivoting to Japanese or Korean luxury options, while others delay purchases altogether. Market analysts are painting a sobering picture. According to S&P Global Mobility, the U.S. auto market could see a reduction of 1.2 million units in annual sales due to this tariff. And it's not just about consumers holding back, it's about fewer vehicles being available at all. Investor reactions have echoed that anxiety. Stock prices for BMW, VW, Daimler, and Audi's parent firm, Volkswagen AG, dropped significantly in the days following the tariff, reflecting market fears of prolonged trade disruption. While German automakers adjust their strategies and brace for impact, tension on the other side of the Atlantic continues to rise. In Brussels, quiet conversations are turning into firm decisions. The European Union is preparing its response, one that could turn a trade dispute into a full-blown economic showdown. EU's retaliatory measures, a $95 billion counterattack. In the wake of sweeping U.S. tariffs on imported vehicles, the European Union responds with precision, resolve, and a warning. The European Commission unveils a powerful €95 billion countermeasure package, carefully designed, deeply strategic, and anything but symbolic. If negotiations collapse, these tariffs won't just hit back, they'll hit where it hurts. The EU's message is crystal clear. It prefers diplomacy over escalation. But if the U.S. continues with unilateral impositions, Brussels is ready to act proportionally. This isn't about starting a trade war. It's about defending economic sovereignty. The €95 billion figure isn't a random number. It's a calculated match to the estimated damage European industries could face under Trump's new automotive tariff regime. What makes this counterattack especially sharp is the choice of products. The proposed tariffs cover a broad and symbolic range: Kentucky bourbon, American-made motorcycles, agricultural machinery, aircraft parts, and even iconic brands tied to the U.S. identity. These items aren't chosen at random. They're rooted in U.S. states that carry serious political weight. The EU is targeting swing states and politically sensitive industries, places like Ohio, Kentucky, and Wisconsin, making it clear that trade decisions can have electoral consequences. It's smart, it's sharp, and it's designed to get Washington's attention. The timing, too, is no accident. With the U.S. presidential election on the horizon, the EU's countermeasures are meant to spark pressure from within. Farmers, factory workers, and business owners in the heartland are being brought into the conversation, not with words, but with price hikes, export losses, and manufacturing slowdowns. American bourbon distillers are already voicing concern. Harley-Davidson, headquartered in Milwaukee, finds itself once again caught in the crosshairs of international trade policy. For these industries, Europe isn't just a market, it's often their second largest after the US, and losing access or being priced out could mean real damage. Analysts warn that this tit-for-tat exchange could have broader consequences. The tariffs risk raising prices for consumers on both sides of the Atlantic. Everyday items could become more expensive, and industries that rely on cross-border components like aerospace and automotive could see production delays and disruptions. European companies that import U.S. parts for assembly may soon find themselves reassessing supply chains. American farmers could lose ground to South American or Australian producers in the EU market. The consequences aren't theoretical. They're real, tangible, and creeping closer with each passing week. Beyond economics, the strain is also diplomatic. Transatlantic ties, once defined by mutual trust and shared goals, are beginning to show cracks. There's concern within NATO circles that economic tensions could spill into broader cooperation. European officials, while maintaining a measured tone publicly, are privately urging the U.S. to return to the negotiating table. The goal isn't conflict, it's balance. But the longer the standoff continues, the harder it becomes to separate economic policy from political posture. With each new tariff and countermeasure, the fallout grows harder to contain. What started as a bilateral dispute is now radiating outward, shaking the foundations of international trade. As pressure builds across continents, the world begins to ask a pressing question: is global commerce itself now under threat? Global trade under siege. The US-EU trade conflict is reverberating across global markets, disrupting supply chains and economic stability. As tariffs mount, countries worldwide are reassessing their trade policies and alliances. The ripple effects of the trade war are challenging the foundations of globalization and international cooperation. South Korea is already feeling the tremors. A recent projection by the Bank of Korea shows exports of automobiles, steel, and semiconductors are set to decline. U.S.-bound car shipments are expected to fall by 4%, steel by 1.4%, and chips by 0.2% if new tariffs take hold. For an export-driven economy like South Korea's, that's not just a statistic, it's a warning sign. And they're not alone. Across Asia and Europe, manufacturers are scrambling to source parts, reroute shipments, and recalibrate production schedules to cope with uncertainty. The auto industry is one of the clearest examples of how wide the impact is reaching. Automakers are making fast decisions. General Motors has ramped up U.S. production of its larger vehicles to soften the blow from import costs. Jaguar Land Rover has paused certain exports to the U.S. Stellantis, the maker of Jeep, is temporarily halting production at its plant in Mexico. These aren't just corporate reshuffles, they're reactions to a landscape that keeps shifting week by week. But it's not just businesses that are adjusting. Consumers around the world are beginning to notice. Prices for everything from SUVs to smartphones are creeping up. Ford, Walmart, Macy's, even Shein, they're all either raising prices or signaling that increases are coming. For everyday shoppers, it means budgeting a little tighter. For the global economy, it means consumer confidence, already fragile, is starting to wobble. That's where the larger concern sets in. According to the International Monetary Fund, global growth in 2025 is expected to slow more than initially predicted, from 3.3% down to 2.8%. The reasons? Trade tensions, higher costs, and growing unease in major economies like China, the US, and across Europe. The World Trade Organization has also lowered its forecast and is urging leaders to return to the table, not because of politics, but because growth itself is at stake. Here's what it really comes down to. Today's economy isn't built for isolation. It's built on connection. Parts made in one country, shipped to another, assembled in a third, and sold in a fourth. The moment one link in that chain gets taxed or delayed, everything else feels it. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. Behind the headlines and announcements are real effects. Factory slowdowns, lost orders, tighter budgets, and cautious investors. No single decision caused it all, but together, the tension is becoming hard to ignore. And unless the world's major economies find a way to cool things down, the rules of global trade may be rewritten in real time, with consequences no one can fully predict. With trade tensions still simmering, the future of international commerce feels more uncertain than ever. Behind the headlines and policy announcements, businesses are adjusting strategies, supply chains are being redrawn, and consumers are starting to feel the pinch. No one's standing still, because standing still right now means falling behind. Ongoing talks between the US and the European Union are trying to slow things down before they spiral further. Both sides are looking for common ground in areas like steel, semiconductors, aerospace, and critical minerals. European Union Trade Commissioner Maroš Šefčovič has been in regular contact with U.S. officials, stressing the need for cooperation instead of confrontation. These talks are far from guaranteed to succeed, but they do offer a possible path forward. And right now, any path forward is worth watching. Meanwhile, legal pressure is building. A recent ruling from the U.S. Court of International Trade challenged the legitimacy of many tariffs imposed under the previous administration. The ruling doesn't immediately reverse them, but it could influence how future trade policies are shaped and whether the current wave of protectionism has legal staying power. On the ground, companies aren't waiting. Multinational manufacturers are diversifying their supply chains and shifting production closer to home. European firms are boosting investment in local plants, not just to avoid tariffs, but to gain more control and predictability in a volatile global market. It's part of a bigger shift, one that values resilience just as much as cost savings. For consumers, the ripple effect is already here. Prices on everything from appliances to clothing to cars are edging upward. Retail giants like Walmart, Macy's, and Ford have all warned of cost increases tied to the new tariffs. The message is clear. When trade slows down, prices speed up. That's why experts suggest that consumers stay alert. Understanding what products are affected and when isn't just smart, it can help households make better financial choices. In some cases, looking at alternative brands or adjusting purchase timing could make a difference. What's becoming clearer with each passing week is that the global economy isn't built for isolation. The more we pull apart, the harder it becomes to grow. And while headlines focus on who's winning or losing, the real solution probably lies in collaboration, not escalation. Whether at the negotiation table, in courtrooms, or on factory floors, the choices made now will shape trade and everyday life for years to come. So, what do you think? Is this just the beginning of a bigger shift in global trade? How will rising prices and changing alliances affect you? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights on global trends. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.